And good morning. We're
Good
back.
morning.
Happy Halloween.
I know. I was gonna say it doesn't feel right not seeing you guys in person, but like you just said, happy Halloween. Where are we gonna
And we didn't dress up. We missed the mark.
I would say this feels more natural. The live was a lot of fun, but not having our screens up and being able to pull up articles and stuff, it was a lot more challenging live than
Yeah,
in
we actually had to make eye contact. It was rough.
I know.
I make eye contact with you guys every call. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, like in person eye contact, just being like, I have to look at Michael like face to face. Oh my god.
All right.
Anyways. Well, anyway,
Human
so
interaction. Will is not used to it after COVID, huh?
Yeah,
no,
we're
well,
gonna have to
also,
re-socialize you.
yeah, I was gonna say after I got back from Vegas, I think I got into my apartment like 2 a.m. Thursday morning. Friday, I was pretty chill, but then like I did not leave my apartment all day Saturday, and it was so weird because like I unlocked my door or I opened my door on Sunday morning to go get a package. I was like, damn, this is the first time I'm leaving since Friday night. Woo! I haven't
Yeah,
seen one single person. So yeah.
that's the best though, when you can like just really recover. I got home from Vegas and I was like, I don't need to see anyone. I just want to stay in my stay in my room. So I feel like a lot of people felt like there's been a real conference like bender, like people are going on,
Yeah.
4 conferences in a row. I think everyone needs like a little bit of a break.
Yeah. I was definitely excited for it. So I there's a couple people still going on and like another sprint. Like they had VRMA, and now they have like a
Focus
couple
Wire,
others.
Focus
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the one in Cancun. So I'm like, oh boy, I got like a little overwhelmed just thinking about it. I was like, yeah, no, I'm done. I'm done until February. That's my rule. So see you guys all again next year.
Wow, just shutting it down in October. Good for you, Will.
And
Good for you.
yeah. I also didn't get to participate in Sober October, so I'm gonna do Sober November, starting fresh. We're gonna
Oh yeah.
go real hard this month. Yeah, you know,
Congrats.
exact opposite
Good
of
luck.
October.
Yeah, I feel like I could benefit from some of that as well.
So, Brandy, this was your first back-to-back conference. Give us some info. Did it hit expectations? Was it better, worse? Did you learn anything? Was it fun? What's the highs and lows?
Okay, well, it's definitely fun. I don't think any of the conferences lack fun, although that kind of is the other side. The other side of that coin is that sometimes there's too much fun. But I
Yeah,
think one of the very obvious themes was is regulation, and it's like not the sexiest theme, but that's what everybody was talking about at some point or
mhm,
another. That was, in almost every conversation that was coming up, at least like touching on it in some ways. And what was interesting at VRMA, I talked with a couple of operators who are a bit smaller. They've been in, maybe in the industry for like a year or two. They have 10 to 15 properties, and they were having these realizations that like the difficulties, you can't just start up this business and run with it. Like sometimes you're having these roadblocks, these barriers that are very real in the form of regulation. So it was really interesting actually getting to talk to some people who are just new. Like there was one woman, it was her first VRMA. She found out about it like 4 days beforehand and came. So I also think
well,
that's a really awesome thing. Like people bringing hosts into the space, giving them access to different educational tools and just other mentors, and then also helping them. I think there's a worry that maybe less professional hosts are doing damage to the industry a little bit, if they're not being good operators. So this gives the industry a chance to bring those people in and kind of bring them up to, the standard that we all want to be at.
yeah. I would second that one. For us, we had a couple of our like other podcasters from the network there, and they're like mainly solely focuses on Airbnb rather than having a Book Direct website and doing other stuff like that. But it was really interesting to see them like interact with big PMs that do have like a management software such as like Guesty or Hostfully or whatever, and like have like a multiple tech stack layer between them and their guests, rather than just being on Airbnb or just on Verbo or whatever the platform was. So those conversations are actually like really pleasant to listen to, because it wasn't like how it kind of is online where everyone's yelling, "Oh, you're only on Airbnb. You're the worst. You're the reason why this industry is going down," and vice versa. It was actually like a big learning conversation. Plus, like they ended up realizing they had a lot more in common rather than anything. So, at the end of the day, I think it was a really good interaction to watch and experience. So,
Yeah, I think the conferences, in my experiences through the years, are largely based around where you are as an individual or a business. In my first 2 or 3 conferences, I'd sit in on every session I could. I'd learn as much as I could. And then as I realized a lot of these sessions are the same every single year, even as far down as the same person saying the same thing each year, it becomes more and more about building relationships. And then the next phase after you've built a lot of good, solid relationships is finding ways to do business with those good, solid relationships. If it's talking about acquisition or merging, or how you guys are going to, leverage your experience with better tech stacks or better, improvements with one another's business. Those are the values, when you're bringing together 1,000 people, you can peel away 10 or 15 people for a dinner and actually learn what is not just surface level being discussed, on stage, but why did XYZ acquire this business? Was it because that business was struggling, or is it because that business has a lot of potential and, Guesty bought them to expand their single host platform market, whatever it may be. So I think the people that are new to the industry would be doing themselves a disservice not by sitting in and absorbing as much as they can from the people on stage. And then, as it goes on, depends on how late you're willing to work into the night and build relationships, but both can be done at the same time.
yeah, we'll call that work into the night for sure.
It is,
Yeah.
man. That's where the relationships get built, and whether you like it or not, I know there's a lot of people that don't value that time as much as they should. They want to have pen and paper and be taking notes and everything, but
Yeah,
I'm telling you, you learn more and you get more out of the relationships. This industry is very, very relationship driven, and we're all busy. And if someone that's calling you Brandy that you've never spoken to, some vendor, you're probably not going to respond unless you've met them, you've had a beer together, you've
Yeah.
thrown some dice on the craps table in Vegas, right? Like then you're going to answer their call. They're going to
Yeah.
get a shot. So those things do matter.
Yeah, I
100%.
actually said, especially because we kind of have been revamping our whole tech stack over the last year, I was like, I'm impervious to being sold anything at this conference. I was like, I am like, we can have a conversation if you'd like to have a conversation, but that's, I was very upfront with a couple people because, it's, the
Yeah.
nerves are still raw.
Well, it's so true though. That was my goal this year, was to really like not like, I didn't attend any sessions except for the one that Brandy and I kind of hosted and moderated, um but outside of that, it was really just focused on the relationships. And I think you're 100% right. The people that you can get a little bit of FaceTime with, and like it was just really cool. It's the reason why I like the industry so much, is just because everyone is so willing to just hop around the corner and have a quick 10-15 minute chat, carry out throughout the night, like you said, if they're going out or if they're not, and then even like getting coffee in the morning when we're all struggling and trying to make it through the day. So it's definitely worth it. Did you guys see any, like, outside of regulation being the biggest topic throughout either Book Direct or VRMA? Was there any other types of theme of conversation, or do you think, I don't know, what's your guys' also thought on like the amount of sessions that cover like data, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
say, oh, sorry,
go
go ahead,
ahead,
Michael.
Brandy. Lead the way.
So I think there's definitely more. I think every year, at least at every conference, there is more around data and using the numbers to actually make like good decisions for your business. But I think another interesting topic, obviously at the Book Direct Show, but then again at VRMA, is diversifying your OTAs. And
Mhm.
so I think for some people that's just like obviously like that's what you would do, but it's not apparently obvious that that's what you should be doing. So that was a conversation like I was personally asked a couple of times like what is our breakdown of how
Mm.
much revenue are we getting from each OTA. It's interesting comparing people in different markets and seeing
Yeah.
how that reliance has shifted, and then also how that how that balance has shifted over the years, because we've seen VRBO used to be like a big chunk of our business and is now very, very small. You're seeing other operators have that opposite balance. So it was just, I think the OTAs and kind of the smaller operators talking about, that balance and diversification more. Um, yeah, so I thought that was good. Not to be anti Airbnb, but you don't want to have all your revenue coming from them.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't at VRMA, obviously. I
You weren't?
read from Tebow that there was a closed door session with the three OTAs,
Yeah.
and Airbnb just got bashed.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of shellacking that HomeAway Verbo took 5 or 6 years ago, that Booking has kind of taken the past 3 or 4 years with all the fraud on their site. But now all of the ire has turned over to Airbnb. So we've talked a lot about that on the show, and we don't need to belabor it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in that room. Were
I
you there,
know.
Brandy?
I was supposed to go to that. It was like a lunch session, and I was in a meeting, and I looked down, and this was another like kind of slight tangent. Getting lost in the hotels in Vegas, like I still, by the time we left, I was like, I don't. It was so confusing. It's a maze.
Heard people getting
But
lost a lot.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But so I didn't like, because you had to be there like right when it started and it was
Mm-hmm.
packed. Wasn't able to sneak in, but I heard that it was quite feisty, and I hope that, I mean, Airbnb had like a whole, army of people there. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they're actually taking some of this feedback to heart, like, and
Mm-hmm.
actually, these are your suppliers and these are the real concerns that they have. And obviously they're not going to change everything that they do, but it would behoove them to start, taking it seriously. It's not just people complaining on a internet forum.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would I would say, so in all of my years, I've seen one executive of Airbnb at the conference, and Nate showed up maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Uh, Whereas executives from Verbo and HomeAway have been present every single
Mm-hmm.
time. And to Booking's credit, executives from the homes division of Booking are always there as well. It is a bit surprising not to have executives from Airbnb present, and they don't even have to stay long. The
Yeah.
flight from San Francisco to Vegas
Vegas is very short.
isn't very far.
Yeah.
And I think when they start showing up to it, that's when you'll see change being made. But until the executives are taking it serious, I wouldn't hold your breath.
Well, it's
Well,
interesting. They have people like more executives on their like kind of like product side almost. Like I saw some people that are in charge of the integrations and things like that. So it's more from like kind of the vendor side of things. But I think you're right, and it would go a long way to have some of like the bigger names show up, and at least to save face. Like if part of it is all PR as well. Like you have to come and kind of make
yeah,
the effort.
100%.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, there you get a lot of respect if you sit on stage and take a bashing.
Hmm.
Um, You really do. Like, yeah, it's not fun, but I mean, shoot, Brian Chesky is a PR wizard. He knows his talking points. He's great at it. I think it'd be great for them to show up to an event. But enough
That is,
about that. I mean, I think one of the other things that I heard quite often was fundraising. So Safely raised, Breezeway raised. There's a big operator out of Europe, Bob W, that raised, which is the first operator we've seen raise a substantial amount of money in a while. There was, I take that back.
especially in Europe though, like
In
Europe,
Europe, for sure.
yeah.
There was one out of Mexico, I think Numa, that raised money recently, but it's good to see operators getting money again, because it had been quite a dry spell there for a while. And, you know, Saunders' public debut is probably not the headwind that the industry was expecting.
Yeah. Well, I was also surprised on the lack of, I guess, headlines. I feel like last year it was like, I think Michael, you and I woke up to do the Good Morning Hospitality episode. We were doing it out in the hallway, and it was just like article after article that whole morning. You and I were texting each other like another one, like a lot of fundraising stuff, a lot of, I think we even saw a couple acquisition articles, but this year I didn't really see it. Like, okay, like we got a heads up on a few of these. Like I knew it was Safely raised the week before, you know, a few other things like that. But I was like, okay,
Yeah,
a little dry on the the industry updates, but
well,
that's okay.
I think it's a indication of the market, right? Like, you have to have good metrics to raise money in this market, and kudos to those that have raised. Obviously, their metrics are great, and to have capital right now is a massive advantage compared to where your competitors are in, you know, hunker down mode. If you can be in aggressive mode, now's the time to push. So now that said, there's still a record amount of dry powder in VC's coffers. So there's plenty of money to go around, but you do have to have a reason to raise such a, you know, to be fair, both those rounds were pretty big. Like Safely Series A, 12 million.
12,
it's a big
yeah,
A round.
Yeah.
Like compared to most vendors in the space are 2 to 5, right?
Well, I think Breezeway was about the same size. It was about
Breezeway's
like
B
15.
round though. So
okay.
yeah, it's I think Breezeway's A round. I could be totally wrong here, but I think it was like 8.
I think it was 8. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. There were a couple operators that I was talking to that are probably about like a third of the size that we are, but they were all, you know, trying to start the fundraising journey. And you know, it's just it's a long slog. So I give people a lot of credit, but that was kind of one of the things I was talking to them about. And you know, the priorities really have shifted from a few years ago when it was growth, or even like a year ago, grow. Now I'm like, you really have to have a solid, like you have to have a solid business. You have to show a path, you either be profitable or a very near term path to that. So I'll be curious to see if next year some of these companies that were, you know, kind of chatting about it are able to come through. It's definitely, yeah, you have to have a lot of determination, I think, and thick skin. But
yeah,
hopefully next year we'll have some more juicy updates after VRMA. But this year, I mean, there have been a lot of acquisitions and news that have been kind of happening throughout the year. So I think that's kind of why it's a little bit slower.
Everyone pulled the trigger a little early this year. I feel like they were just like, all right, you know, VRMA's around the corner, but we're just gonna announce now.
Yeah, and in my experience, you know, a lot of what we were announcing at Noise Aware came shortly after the conferences, because things that we had been working on all year with partners or with other vendors, you could get that head time, that face-to-face time, and finalize all the details, and then come November, December, share it, push them out there. So, I'd suspect we'll see a good number of additional things coming out in the next couple months before the end of the year. M&A, like I know there's companies out there that are trying to roll up some of their competitors, or they're buying access to new markets. It's happening. It's just a matter of time. Can those deals get closed? And
we need the ink to dry so we can start announcing stuff, because we already know it.
Well, I mean, that's one thing, but there's also I know there's groups out there that want to do roll-ups, and they're hunting for people to team up with them on doing that. And it's not just the Inhabits or the big private equity shops. It's actually, operators or vendors in the space that are interested in being bigger and then cashing out. I mean, it's really, a lot of us have been in the space for many, many years, and some folks are ready to move on.
Yeah, and I know a couple of small, maybe companies that you wouldn't expect are trying to buy and roll up stuff, and so it's an exciting time. We're just waiting again, like I said, I'm just waiting for the ink to dry so we can start sharing some of it, because I think it's pretty cool. It's an exciting time for what's happening.
Yeah, the other big news is that Selena went public. So now we have a third company in our space that we get to watch, and hopefully it goes well. That's the thing, we've talked a lot about Saunders' performance, and I really hope that it keeps getting better. I mean, it would make our job, my job, Andreas's job, a little bit easier. But so hopefully Selena has a better out of the gate performance. I'll be curious.
Does Selena own their real estate, or are they leasing it?
I'm not sure.
Remember. It's a good question for our old guest on the show who used to work. Does he used to or still work for him? He does consulting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I believe Soho House owns all of their real estate, which makes it a different business model altogether than Saunders, right? Where you're getting the appreciation of the asset in addition to the use of it versus just the use of it. So I wonder if Selena's is similar. So it wouldn't be a true apples to apples comparison with Sonder, but it is still in the space. Right now, at least there's something other than just Airbnb to compare to. It drives me nuts when I see Vacasa is taking on Airbnb. It's like, no, they're not. Not at all.
When I see articles like that, it's just like, and does any due diligence go into these articles at all? Like,
Nope.
It's
Zero.
so ridiculous. But I will say that our industry has started, like, different podcasts I've listened to or different news sites. I'm starting to see our industry pop up in places more frequently where it wouldn't before. And so I think that's, I mean, it's, I think, still a very low level. It's not like we're making big splashy headlines, but it's nice to see the, some recognition in some form or the other. Like, we're worthy of being talked about on the, the bigger news sites.
Well, I was gonna say, speaking of which, yesterday I had an old Army buddy Instagram message me, and it was a video of one of our podcasters who's also a short-term rental operator and a hotel operator, and he's like, dude, this is a really cool idea, you should look into doing this. I'm like, I know him, we run his podcast, and also we do that. So yeah, that's exactly. And he's like, oh, this is sick. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. Like it wasn't a big headline or anything, but just an Instagram reel that one of my buddies somehow saw without even knowing the connection between the two of us. It's also kind of cool to see that it's kind of becoming more publicly, I guess, watched rather than that. And then to answer your question, Michael, Selena is a mix of both owned and leased properties.
Perfect. It's probably the best way to go.
Yeah. So they look for landlords, and then they also look for really good deals when it comes to real estate, is what basically I just read. So that's on their website too. So I'm not quoting from like a third source or anything like that. That is wrong.
So it's real news. So
Real
fact
news.
check: is Selena an Airbnb competitor?
Yeah.
No.
Fact check false. Okay.
False.
Awesome. Well, in other news, to shamelessly plug story, our first check-in is today.
Yay!
Yeah, the bookings
Congratulations.
are starting to roll in, and our first check-in is tonight. So we're excited about that. Big day.
That's
Congrats.
awesome. Yeah,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's always exciting. I remember my first check-in. It was like,
Remember your first? Well,
yeah, I remember my first. It was great. But yeah, to also do a shameless plug, I know Brandy and I kind of mentioned it, but we got to do a panel with some of our good friends in the industry at VRMA, and it was really fun to speak of like VRMA or conference highlights. But I also had a nice little memory, just sharing this picture with everyone who's watching on the live, getting to see those beautiful faces in person. Like, look at us, we just look so good.
know.
We were all we were all matching too, like the white and blues. Like,
it works.
I
wow,
know.
it was great.
It works.
And then
we all were well rested the day before.
Yeah, and then you have this group who was just like, a mix of everything. So
We had so much fun though that I think it felt like people actually took things away from the panel, which
yeah,
because when you're going into it, you're like, are we going to say anything that people actually care about? And like,
yeah.
so I think that it went pretty well. Hopefully.
The outline that VRMA approved did not get used because we just went off script and we're like, look, and it was good. I did get a couple people like message me or even like afterwards when we went out like to the host GPO party, which shout out to host GPO for shit. Where am I going? There we go.
Coffee box.
Coffee box. Shout out to host GPO, but it was really cool because a lot of people are like, it was different than the other panels. Like I didn't feel like I was getting talked to. We weren't sitting down and looking at each other, but we're like actually engaging with the audience. Which I felt was good. There's a couple of people I did hear that maybe aren't the most techie, so they didn't understand the conversation, I guess, from that point. But at the end of the day,
everybody.
Yeah, but that was just like a small handful.
Well, it's important for those people to hear the conversation and at least start hearing about all of those things because the reality is their business needs some of the things that we were talking about. So they might be uncomfortable or unfamiliar with it now, but the more they attend those sessions or they start hearing that vocabulary, it will help them down the road.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because the question is like, how do you determine in your tech stack all in one solution or customize specialized pieces? And like we didn't really answer the question because there was no real answer. There's no like right or wrong. It's really based off of your business. And so I think that was like the main point that people did take away was like I need to ask more questions, especially when it comes to vendors. Like, I need to be picky on who they integrate with, how their integrations work, what's the roadmap, the real roadmap, not the
Not-
the
the
salesy
sales
roadmap.
pitch. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, there's
yeah.
I have like from our last migration, I have kind of like the list of questions and stuff, and I should just go back and add that and maybe refine that to send it out to people because there's things that with each migration, and that's what someone was asking me, like what advice would I get, like why did I choose, X partner when we were this size? And I was like, I can't even really give you relevant information about that because those vendors have changed and like what we needed at that size is totally different than when you need, right? Like it has to come from what your business needs, not what somebody else has done.
100%. So there is no like copy and paste, unfortunately. But
Unfortunately, we tried that with some Stay Alfred things, and I can tell you it did not go as smoothly as we had hoped.
yeah, it's Michael. I'm kind of curious from the stories perspective, like especially you're dealing with more hotels rather than short-term rentals. What's that tech stack question or a conversation look like with you guys, especially getting involved as a channel for them to make those big bookings?
Yeah, I think having spent most of my career in short-term rentals, the hotel world is a number of steps ahead.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, we are able to pull reservations or to send reservations to like 30 or 40 different PMSs and channel managers, which in the short-term rental space would have taken us who knows how many years to build that, right? Just because there's not really good middleware. So it is not perfect. It doesn't integrate with everything or everybody. So it is important to know when you're signing up for softwares for PMSs, is it the most widely used, the most kind of common in the space? And whether it's the best technology or not, it's gonna be better for you if it has more integrations, more tie-ins, even if functionality might be slightly limited, simply because it's connected in the ecosystem. And maybe in 2 or 3 years, that better functionality on the other competitor is worthwhile to switch over. But life is a lot easier with connectivity, with integrations that work. So
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that was an old episode on the podcast. This is episode 93. And I know we forgot to celebrate it in Miami, but we also hit our 2-year anniversary. So congrats, team, for that. But it kind of comes back to like that. And I know we're running over time, so I won't rant long, but I think like the Avengers of the tech side, like if you can find a really good PMS, this is a really solid integration with like a door lock access company, with noise, with insurance, and everything like revenue management. Even another platform like Breezeway, to really like solid connections. Yes, like it may be pricey, but if you can focus on that, where like it's seamless, they don't break easily. I also believe in property management softwares that do not require a channel manager to be added to it. So that should be like, I see channel management and property management softwares, they should be one and the same. But I also know that's a lot to ask for property management software that's like focusing on all of the back end stuff, and then the channels change their APIs without telling anybody, and then all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we don't need another third, fourth, fifth, sixth person in between the guest and the property management. So that's just my little rant of the day. But yeah, that's where we're at. Cool. And on that note, so see you guys all again next week. Happy Halloween. And then
Happy
let's say
Halloween.
what is next week? I don't even know. Okay, cool.
it'll be another Monday.
Another Monday. Yeah,
In November, which is wild. I had promised myself I was going to start doing holiday shopping like earlier in the year, and that has not happened yet. So
We'll ask for an update next week, Brandy.
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll need it.
We'll be your accountability partners.
Yeah, good. I need it.
Awesome. Well, good episode, guys. Happy 2 years. Happy Monday. And
Happy Monday.
we'll see you all again next week.